stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Milner. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy, and I want to welcome you to part 2 of this episode of the Unpleasant Blind Guy on EDL Radio. Now remember, if you want to contact me with comments, questions, show suggestions, Awesome American suggestions, I'm available at UBG Contact on Twitter, or I can also be found as Dave Milner or Agador, that's Aggedor, on Mumblet, the Tea Party Community, Spreely, Minds, MeWe, or Gab. Now let's begin.
It's so corrupt, and that's the problem, you know. But you've got to fight it no matter what. Even though you know that the odds are against you, you still got to fight against oppression. There's no two ways about it, is there, Dave?
No, they're not, Jeff. And I think we may have our guests on board. Let me just check this call here real quick, Jeff. Just one moment. All right. Caller, you have reached the English Defense League radio show with your host, Jeff Spider Mitchell. Please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Carmel Melamed.
Welcome, Carmel.
Good evening. Welcome to the show, Carmel. Mr. Melamed, it's a great honour and a privilege to have you join us on the show this evening. I hope you're keeping well, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're very well. Yeah, go ahead,
Carmel.
Dave.
I hope, Carmel, I hope you don't mind if I continue to call you Carmel. I know Carmel Melamed from the Turban, which was a chat room put out through a great radio show, which right now, for a moment, no longer exists. The Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter. I came to know Mr. Melamed as a man of great and deep knowledge. It didn't take very long for that to be apparent. And as I was thinking about this program and thinking about putting it together, obviously one of the things that we wanted to cover was the freedom movement that's going on right now in Iran. And this fella that you're about to hear from has very intimate knowledge about that. Carmel, would you please give the people a little bit of a thumbnail of your background, sir, so that we can start from there?
Oh, absolutely. I was born in Iran 41 years ago at the cusp of the revolution. So at the beginning of chaos that resulted in the Ayatollah Khomeini coming to power occurred around the time when I was born. Subsequently, a couple of years later, the new Ayatollah regime, a radical Shiite Islamic regime that took power, basically did away with any kind of freedoms that the previous Shah's regime had put in place for all Iranians. Our family were Jews. We were non-Muslims, and under the new Sharia law of the Islamic regime, we were relegated to third-class citizenship. My family did not want to leave Iran. Iran was our home. Jews have been living in Iran for 2,700 years. They had no affiliation with the previous regime. They were not political. And so they remained, a year after the revolution under the Ayatollah. Unfortunately, one of my father's relatives was arrested and executed for the crime of being a wealthy Jew who owned a hotel. He had one of the largest, most successful hotels in the heart of Tehran, and the regime wanted to confiscate it. And they arrested him, they promptly put him in front of a firing squad, and they executed him. And that execution was traumatic for our family. My father, out of love for, his relative, who was also a close friend, went to retrieve the body, and it was an entire ordeal. But they were able to get the body. They gave this young gentleman who was about 30 or 31 years old a final burial, and less than a week or two after, my parents, myself, obviously I was very young. I have no memory of this, but we fled Iran. We left behind everything, all of our assets, our money, our properties, everything was left behind, and this was right at the cusp of the war between Iran and Iraq. Like many other thousands of, Jews, Christians, and even Muslims who didn't agree with the regime, we fled. And so we set up, our family set up new lives again here in the United States, Southern California. You have a pretty substantial Iranian expat community living here in Southern California, and that was 39 years ago, in September of 1980. And in the last 20 years, I've been involved with reporting on the Iranian community here in Southern California, and then also reporting on some of the activities of the regime vis-a-vis, journalists, religious minorities, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, artists, just trying to educate Westerners and Americans about the evil totalitarian aspects of this regime. They are truly a threat not only to that part of the world, the Middle East, but they are a threat to decency and, Western civilization, in my humble opinion. I also speak at, various venues about, what this regime is about, and just trying to wake people up to the nightmare that they have unleashed upon their own people, upon much of the Middle East, and their aspirations for Europe and America and the rest of the world. It is not a regime that, like North Korea, that just wants to be left alone and have its own domain. No, they have Shiite radical Islamic aspirations for the entire world. It's a quote-unquote Islamic revolution that they aspire to.
Well, that's
thank you.
What an amazing story, Carmel. I mean, what you said about one of your relatives. I feel so sorry for your poor family to have had to deal with. It must have been absolutely petrifying. Having to really think about better get out of here. We better move. Better move the family and leave your assets. It must have been a nightmare for your family, and I'm so glad that you re-established yourself in the United States. And one day, Carmel, maybe, possible, when that the Islamic theology has fallen, maybe you can return back home. That must be your dream, my friend, for the future, for your aspirations. But as I say, you're a journalist, so it's nice that you're covering different aspects and keeping people up to speed of exactly how this affects, not just Iran and the wider, but the world, because of this Iranian. It's some lot trying to create a caliphate in some ways, but maybe worse. I don't know, Carmel. Maybe your thoughts.
I'm not sure I understand your question. You're asking what the regime's desires are, or?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think we know it's all about power. They want their nuclear weapons, don't they, so that they can blackmail and threaten the world with that technology. And everybody's trying to resist. But is that what they want? They want to totally dominate the world.
That is the long-term. Yeah, that is the long-term goal of the regime. If you look at the regime's constitution and the members of parliament, the Iranian parliament, that swear allegiance to the constitution, their goal is to spread their form of radical Shiite Islam, not just to the Middle East, but to the rest of the world. Their belief is that if they can have the rest of the world follow their form of radical Shiite Islam, then this will bring the Mahdi, which is their equivalent of the Messiah, and this will, create a quote-unquote paradise on earth, and they will use all means possible to achieve that.
Supposed to come through a well. This is what I don't know, my friend, but it's something about he'll come from the well, or a well of some sort. That's what I've heard, anyway.
Correct.
Yes,
well, now, Carmel,
I just want to clarify that with you because this is what I've heard over the time, and but once again, I've got to thank you for your time this evening, coming and joining myself and Dave, and it's so important that we have your voice on these shows so that we can explain, so you can explain to the world what's actually how you see things, how you perceive things, and how we deal. How do we deal with Iran? Because they're very difficult to sort of deal with, aren't they?
Well, the best way right now is to look at the situation at hand with the protesters. Almost a week ago, thousands in almost every major city in Iran, smaller cities, towns, villages, the people of Iran, who are tremendously fantastic people. I have the utmost love and appreciation for them, and we must make the differentiation between the people and the regime. The people are totally different and opposed to this regime, but the people for the last week or so have begun an uprising, a mass national protest against the evils of the regime, the corruption of the regime, the lack of economic opportunities, the lack of freedom, the lack of a real voice, a lack of opportunity. Many people in the U.S. and Europe and the West forget that close to 70% of Iran's population are under the age of 35. They don't remember the Ayatollah.
Young, aren't they, Carmel? Very young. That's what I've heard.
They have aspirations for great things.
God bless the great people of the Iranian people, because you've got to stand up against oppression, haven't you, Carmel? And that's what your great people are doing. God bless them, I would say. Go ahead, Carmel.
And we need, in the West, we need to support them. We need to urge our elected officials to put pressure on the Iranian regime and put pressure on those governments in the UK and Europe that are appeasing the regime to speak up, to stand up and say, no, this is not right. You need to allow these people to have a voice. The regime, in response to the crackdown, in response to the protests, have cracked down on the protesters, basically slaughtering them on the streets with live ammunition, beating them, arresting them. They've shut down the internet for a number of days for the entire country. Imagine a country of 80 million with zero internet access. This is how desperate the regime is. They brought the entire country to a standstill in order to retain this power and crush this popular uprising. And what's truly heartbreaking
but they're crumbling, aren't they? Come on, I hope you don't mind me interjecting, but isn't the economy crumbling simply because of the stress and the strains that the United States has been putting on them? You know,
absolutely. The U.S. sanctions on Iran are working contrary to what some of these media pundits on the left and apologists for the regime say.
Yeah.
The regime is under distress, but they're ready to dig themselves into an even deeper hole by, silencing the voices and shutting down the internet, which basically shuts down all other commerce in the country.
Yeah, I'm quite concerned about it because when your regime becomes desperate, they do desperate things, don't they? Like any regime, you know that they've a way that they hit out, especially towards your people. I'm just hoping that the United States and the allies who respect the freedom of the people of Iran stand up and when it comes to give them aid, whatever aid that might be, and I'm not saying guns or anything like that, but you know what I mean, don't you, Carmel? That's what the good people need. That's how you fight an uprising. You can't just do it with flesh and blood. Sometimes you need to go in with weapons against the regime. What can you do, Carmel? Otherwise, you're just going to be slaughtered. You'll be slaughtered, aren't you, the people? Go ahead.
I'd like...
Yeah, the people of Iran are beaming back through social media their messages of, anger, frustration with the regime, and also their protests. And they're showing the brutality of the regime through, videos, photographs of how the regime's thugs and apparatus are killing people, detaining people just for, protesting. And the regime is basically shut down the internet to prevent that. In the last few days, they've allowed some kind of internet access, but it's very limited through, very few, avenues. The West and the United States can provide that internet access through satellites. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard of it, but if you go through social media, there are thousands and thousands of Iranians outside of the country and in the country asking for the U.S. to step in and provide them with that internet access that the regime has denied them.
Well,
Carmel,
hopefully your voice can be heard. On the radio show like we're doing now, hopefully it will be heard, and hopefully something will be done because, as I say, the people are becoming desperate and angry simply because they're doing everything they can. But you need backup, don't you? That's what the people need, backup. And I'm pointing, Mr. President Trump, I hope you're listening to us because, the good people of Iran need your help. And I know you're doing the best you can. Shame that the United Kingdom couldn't do exactly the same. But unfortunately, it's a different thing. But Carmel, once again, it's a great honour and a privilege to Carmel, I was going to say before we continue, can we do another show? Can you come back now and again to let us know how things, if things are changing at a later time? Maybe another show later down the road, if it's okay with you, because I'd love to talk with you because you've got so much knowledge. You know exactly, you've got your finger on the pulse, and we love to hear people like you on the radio show, Carmel.
My pleasure. My pleasure to join you anytime. Be more than happy to share insights whenever you like.
That's
Carmel,
really
I'd like to...
I want to pass it back to Dave, Carmel. But as I say, once again, you've opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't quite understand, but you've clarified that. Once again, thank you for your time tonight and to share with the listeners out there exactly what is going on and what can be done. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to Dave. Dave, I know you might have a couple of questions for our dear friend Carmel.
Right. Well, Carmel, I do have a couple of questions/observations involving the press here. And it's very important, this, because perception is a very large part of whether the freedom movement in Iran gets the help it needs. Now, this program is being monitored once in a while by members of the Fourth Estate in the United Kingdom, people who are not sympathetic to any freedom movement anywhere. They consider us to be thisists and thatists and thisophobes and thatophobes, even though the only thing that the English Defense League has ever asked for is equal treatment under the law for everyone. But they try and mischaracterize us. I want to take care of one thing that some of them might say right now. All right. You, as an independent journalist, have not just written for the Weekly Shopper. You have actually had, this is the first question, you've actually had articles in some significant publications. Am I correct?
Correct.
Well, like, for instance, which publications would those be?
My articles have appeared in various Southern California publications, the Los Angeles Jewish Journal, the Forward is another Jewish publication in New York, the Jerusalem Post is an Israeli newspaper, the Arutz Sheva news organization based out of Israel, the Orange County Register is a Southern California newspaper, a number of wire news services, a number of Iranian publications here in Southern California. The list is too long.
Understood. When you're an independent journalist,
yes, freelance. I'm not affiliated with any one organization. My objective is to reach as many people as possible, and just educate people about what's going on in Iran and how it affects Americans and Westerners.
Right. Now, the other thing I want to get to here is, again, the perception thing. This is being put out by the BBC, all right. The article that I have in front of me, it's fairly recent, and the headline on it is Iran petrol protests. That's gasoline for our American brothers and sisters. 100 leaders arrested in crackdown. Now, the perception that the BBC, and I've seen other publications do this as I was scanning around for this, have been that it's all over issues involving petrol or gasoline, gas prices, this sort of thing. It isn't almost as if they're painting this as being an uprising concerning one issue. Now, can you share a little bit of truth about whether or not that's correct?
That's bogus. That is completely false. Unfortunately, much of the media in Europe and the United States has been advancing the regime's talking points. The regime doesn't want to shed the correct light on this protest. They want to segregate it to, labeling it as some kind of uprising because of fuel prices. That's garbage. And the reason it's garbage is, if you look at the videos that are coming out from the protesters themselves on social media, they're coming out and saying, not Gaza, not Lebanon, we, sacrifice our lives for Iran. We don't want this regime. We're tired of the oppression. Why are our funds, why is our country's wealth being spent on hegemonic wars in Lebanon and Iraq and Yemen and Syria? The people themselves are saying in plain language, this is not about fuel. This is about 40 years of oppression. This is about 40 years of humiliation and corruption, and we're sick of it. Unfortunately, the Western media, the larger media outlets, the BBC, CNN, New York Times, they are picking up the regime's talking points and they are regurgitating it very, very sadly. And unfortunately, there aren't any Western reporters in Iran to refute it and, and lay it out properly.
And these are some of the largest ones too, Carmel. As I said, I scanned around looking for this, and it all came up. Yes, fuel prices, and you named them. CNN, the New York Times, name the large publication. I think I even saw AP pushing this, the Associated Press, and I knew that it was bogus. But as you were speaking, Carmel, I had my mic muted, and I was going, yes, beautiful, because our listeners needed to hear the fact that this is completely bogus from someone who knows what he is talking about. And obviously, I agree with Jeff about having you back at some point, maybe early next year, who knows, because you also are versed in the Iranian Sharia law, and that plugs into the entire Shiite sect of Islam, which affects much of the Middle East, and as we know, is pushing tentacles out into places like Africa and South America and places of that nature. And it really needed to be said that whatever folks listening to this, whatever you're hearing from the fake stream media, BBC, Sky News over in the UK, in the States, CNN, MSNBC, all of those people, is a complete farce and is completely wrong. And Carmel, I know you have to go in a few minutes. Are there some things that you'd like to say? First of all, how can people, if you have a website or something of that nature that people could get hold of you at, how can people get hold of you? And maybe some final statements from you.
I do not have a website, but I am available on Facebook and Twitter at Carmel Melamed, Karmel Melamed, my first and last name. So people can reach me and follow my commentary or any pieces that I write on social media. And, of course, your program. Be more than happy to join you guys and shed light on, what's going on with the regime and, unfortunately, how Western governments and also news agencies are appeasing this regime instead of fighting back against it and exposing its evil. If I may, and I don't want to take away from Ronald Reagan's statement where he called the Soviet Union an evil empire that we need to fight back against. Well, my friends, I think in this century, the new evil empire is the Iranian regime. I'm not comparing it with, the Soviet regime by no means, but the level of evil is comparable. And we need to look at Iran as a serious threat to civilization and, look at the facts instead of, hearing the talking heads.
You're absolutely right. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just jump in just for a second to say, well said, Carmel, and that is what we talk about. This is not like normal radio shows. We don't take, the political correct way about things. We tell the truth. That's why people like yourself, Carmel, who come onto this radio show, for people to listen to the truth, get the truth. That's why I would love to have you back on a little bit later on, because you are an awesome gentleman to speak about the things that we talk about week in, week out, and to have someone with the expertise as yourself, where Sharia law is concerned, it'd be wonderful to have you join us now and again, Carmel. Thank you.
It would be an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, Carmel,
thank you.
I want to thank
Dave,
you.
sorry about that. I just want to just say that.
No.
Carry on, Dave.
Well,
Thank you,
no,
Carmel.
Jeff's the host. Jeff's the host of the show, and he and I both think that this has been a tremendous appearance on your part, and we want to thank you for spending part of your family time today to be with us. Both Jeff and I are family-oriented. Jeff is not just a father and a grandfather; he's a great-grandfather. And let's see, what time is it? It's 16:29 here. He might be a great-grandfather, a few more times over before the show. So he's got a big family, Carmel. But thank you again, sir. And,
my pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime.
God bless you, sir, and thank you for calling. And we will talk again. Thank you for being on our show.
God bless.
We will. Thank you, Carmel.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, my friend.
Bye.
And that is it for this time. Next time, Part 3. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening, and may your God go with you. Goodbye.
The Unpleasant Blind Guy is copyright 2019. Anno Domini. Now for Dave's Canes. Extras that help you navigate the new media world.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.